Well, why don't we go ahead and get started, because I think we have a good number of folks with us. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to ask Hannah to put the agenda up. So I'll give you a quick organizational update. We have a really good brown bag lunch planned on May 11th at noon. And it's really two topics. The first one, this is something Charles Santos brought to our attention, is that there are protocols for ADA compliance for our websites. Yeah. And so we have an expert, Sharon Rush from Nobility, who is going to be joining us. She'll do a brief presentation, but basically bringing us up to speed on what we need to do to make sure that our websites are ADA compliant. And then the second part, and this could actually go a little longer than our usual hour, this is about crypto art and NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, which is kind of a thing right now. It's kind of started in the visual arts community, and it's now trickling over into the performing arts. And it's all new territory for most of us. So we'll have a panel discussion with that, and we'll have an intellectual property attorney, Cole Davis. He's been with us a couple of times before to talk about copyright, but he's been working directly on some of this blockchain technology that underpins this new method. Then Sam Bruckman from Verdigris Ensemble has actually produced a work that was made available through using the NFTs. And so he's going to talk about their experiences. And then Taylor Curry, who is a consignment director of fine and decorative arts for Heritage Auctions, he's going to talk about the marketplace and how that's working. So, this could be the next big thing, another way to monetize our artistic products. So again, it's free to members. Anyone in your organization or on your board is welcome to join us. And we'll have information on the website if we don't already. So I hope you'll join us for that. And then our next DACAC meeting will be Wednesday, May 26th at 4 p.m. And by then we should have a better idea of the outcome of our municipal elections. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get towards the end here. But next I want to move to this new element that we've brought to our meetings, and that's our member spotlight. And we are going to highlight two members, Teresa Coleman with Bishop Arts Theater, and Judy Pollock. And I'm going to ask Tino to take over and tell us a little bit about our new members.
Sure thing.
New or renewing members.
And since I haven't brushed my hair, I'm going to use my hair. So like Judy said, like Joanna said, we are doing the member spotlights, and a lot of you know these two folks. And their organization, the organization Bishop Arts Theater. But I've been impressed with how Teresa and Bishop Arts Theater took to being very innovative in their programming lately. And we're taking some performances out to parking lots, to various other locations, and doing performances at a safe distance. So she's got several things going on with her programming that's across the spectrum. There are in Oak Cliff. And so Teresa Coleman, if you'd like to kick it off, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Tino, and happy birthday again. I am so happy to be here. I'm not a new member of DACAC. I have been a member of this organization for several years. Joanna is a very valued mentor, and I've watched her work and just stolen a lot of her ideas, working with elected officials and city council members over the years, and we've been able to get a lot of things done. Just with Joanna's help. So a lot is going on at the Bishop Arts Theater Center. I'm the executive artistic director and founder. We are working with, we just found this out yesterday. So we're working with the mayor's office and to be a distribution point for the vaccine. That is going to happen on Friday, which is April 30th. So if you know someone who needs the vaccine, please have them register. I'm going to put our a flyer in the chat, and so that you guys will have the registration link. And we really would love to have anyone who needs the vaccine, if they can register using this this link, that will be great. It will be on Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the theater. Incidentally, my son is graduating from college on Saturday, so I'll be in Point Park University in Pittsburgh. But my staff and board members are very excited to work with the mayor and mayor's office and the Caring Foundation of Texas to administer the Moderna vaccine. So please register. We're happy that we're able to do that. And to Tino's point, when the pandemic hit, we pivoted, and we've never considered ourselves to be a traditional theater. And in this moment, that feels like a strength. We had senior citizens who were coming to the theater twice a week to participate in a storytelling circle. And of course, when the shutdown happened, that was a population that was most vulnerable, and we were determined not to abandon them. So we started doing workshops and performances in parking lots and on patios of aging care facilities and several recreation centers throughout the city. And I think long after the pandemic is over, we will continue those programs as well. We've worked very closely with the Dallas Independent School District. In fact, Reagan is right around the corner. Reagan Elementary is right around the corner from the theater. There is a digital divide, as we all know, and so we donated laptops to that elementary school. Not only did we donate laptops, but we also provided virtual programs, e-learning programs that are still up on our website as well. There's one other thing that I wanted to just make this group aware of is when I moved to Dallas, the Office of Arts and Culture had a program called the Facilities Usage Reimbursement Program. It allowed fledgling organizations like ours to get a footing in the Dallas area. Of course, that was 21 years ago. And we had hoped that when we renovated our theater at the Bishop Arts Theater, that that program would be in existence, but it went away. I have been working with the Office of Arts and Culture since the renovations of our theater in 2008 to bring that resource back to arts organizations. And I'm so happy to announce that we have a semblance. We're going to be offering a semblance of that program starting in May through June of this year. So if you are an arts group and you need rehearsal space or performance space, please get in touch with us. We have upgraded our venue to meet COVID guidelines, COVID safety guidelines in terms of their hand sanitizing stations throughout the building. We have PPE. We've also installed air scrubbers to improve indoor air quality throughout the building. We have UVC lights. So yes, please contact us and let us know, it's booking up really soon. So I would urge you to call the office. Samantha Anderson is the contact person. And I'll put that number in the chat also so that you can give her a call. But I'm really excited about that. And without taking up too much time, because I know we have a full agenda, I'm going to pass it to Judy.
Thank you, Teresa. Before you pass it to Judy, I just want to say a word about Judy. And again, in in-person meetings, Judy's always been there. She's probably touched every organization in Dallas and beyond. She's been an arts and a culture commissioner as well, I believe. And she is a great resource and consults a lot for nonprofit organizations. And she also is from Oak Cliff. This was coincidental that everybody from, our member spotlight today was from Oak Cliff. But Judy, take the floor.
Thank you, Tino. I want to begin by thanking Joanna and the steering committee and everybody else who was involved in planning Arts Advocacy Lunch. Was fantastic. Everybody thought it was one of the highlights of the year, probably the highlights of the last couple of years. Tino asked me to tell you a little bit about my journey and how I got involved in the arts and arts advocacy. And it really began before I moved to Texas. I lived in North Carolina, and I was the assistant to the CEO of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Arts Council. And it was my first experience with Arts Month, if you can believe it or not. We're talking back in the 70s. Every February, we had Heart for the Arts, and that was our annual fundraiser, raising opportunity for the year. And we had a lot of the things that happened in Dallas during that Arts Month. Then I moved to Dallas, and I was working and doing a lot of volunteering, had season tickets to just about, well, several organizations. And after I sold my last business at the late 80s, I moved to New York City. I went to work for the man that I used to work for in North Carolina. And he was the CEO of the American Council for the Arts, which is now called Americans for the Arts, when Bob Lynch took it over. We had my first experience with Arts Advocacy Day. We had Arts Advocacy Day every year in Washington, D.C. with keynote speakers like Maya Angelou and other people that I can't think of at the moment. Then I returned to Dallas, and for the next couple of decades, I spent a lot of my time working in the arts and cultural community. I served on 9 different boards, and I shared a lot of fundraising opportunities and lunches and things for many of the major arts groups in town. Also had season tickets to 6 or 8 different organizations. I did serve, as Tino mentioned, 8 years on the Cultural Affairs Commission as a commissioner. And then I took a little break, and then I went back as the chair, and I served as the chair for 4 years. I was also on the board of Texans for the Arts and chaired in 2009. They had not had Arts Advocacy Day in quite some time. So I chaired the first one they had in quite some time, and our Bill Lively from Dallas agreed to be our keynote speaker. I also was invited to join the Mid-America Arts Alliance board and served on that for some time. In the meantime, I wrote a weekly column on nonprofit organizations. I think I even wrote about you, Teresa, in one of them for the Oak Cliff People newspaper when that was still around. And earlier on, I was in the early stages, let's say, of the Arts District. I was on several of the groups that were instrumental in getting things sort of organized, I guess. The Dallas Arts District Strategic Planning Council, the City Performance Ad Hoc Advisory Committee, and then the President's Advisory Council. But the exciting part is, 14 years ago, Joanna and I started planning, the very first Arts Advocacy for Dallas. And that was a lot of fun. And it's so exciting to know that all of you are still participating, and Joanna has been working on this for all these years. And I just think it's just an exciting opportunity for the arts community, because I don't know how many other communities in the United States have this. Now, my latest and last adventure has been on the board of the Oak Cliff Society for the Fine Arts. I was on that board and chaired their capital campaign to raise money to renovate. So even though it's been a long journey, I'm still involved, and I think I've been to just about every arts luncheon, haven't I? Probably, I think so. So thanks for this opportunity, and thank you all for all the work you do. I know it's been very difficult this last year, but you have just been, soldiers in the battle, and I applaud you all for your hard work and efforts.
Thank you so much, Judy. And so thank you, Teresa. For those of you who are contemplating being a member spotlighted in the member spotlight, please use that time to share what's going on with you, how you got involved. We're happy to answer questions. If you think you should mention it, whatever you want. It's really an opportunity for us to get to know you, especially since we're not physically socializing over some beer and wine. Well, that's to be seen, right? But yeah, so we've already got a group for next month. If you want to be a part of this, just let me know. Thank you again, Judy. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Joanna.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Judy. You both do amazing work and we love having you as part of our group. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Maribeth Lyson, and you all know her from Visit Dallas, and she is going to share with us the new guidelines for the Dallas Tpid grant program. So, and she's going to be sharing her screen. And so again, as Hannah said, if it takes a few minutes, or a few seconds, just bear with us. And if you have questions for Maribeth, put them in the chat, and Hannah will be monitoring and make sure that we get those answered for you. So go ahead, Maribeth.
Thanks, Joanna. Let me attempt to share the screen. All right, can everybody see okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. So as Joanna said, I'm Maribeth Lyson. I am the Director of Cultural Tourism for Visit Dallas. I think most of you know me, but if you don't, hi. And I want to thank you all for making time to visit with me today, and especially for Joanna for giving me the opportunity to talk to you all about what Visit Dallas does and the event incentive program. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do, that event incentive program, which is basically our grant program to help you market and promote your events to visitors. And then I'll give a short update on what we're seeing in terms of visitors and the continued COVID recovery that I think you all might be interested in. And then, as Joanna said, we'll have time for questions at the end, but feel free to pop them in that chat and we'll make sure we don't miss anything and you don't have to try to remember them all the way to the end. So with that, we'll get started. So just a quick thing on Visit Dallas in case anyone isn't familiar. We are a DMO, which in the travel and tourism industry, DMO stands for Destination Marketing Organization, and DMOs represent destinations and help develop their long-term travel and tourism strategy. We market and promote a destination basically, and for us, that's Dallas. We are contracted by the city of Dallas to market and promote Dallas. And a big part of what we try to do is drive cultural tourism. We're a huge believer in the arts as our partner and part of the product that we're selling to get visitors to come here because it's a huge draw for us. And the arts help open up that wonderful world that is Dallas and showcase what all we have to offer. So we are very grateful for all of you. As I mentioned, our arts event and incentive program is one of those ways we can partner together. And historically, we have given up to $1 million per year that is awarded to support local arts and culture events happening in Dallas. It does have to be in city limits. And then organizations are eligible for up to $25,000 annually on the fiscal year. And that can be for one event or multiple events throughout that year, and it's up to that threshold. The events have to generate at least 30 overnight visits to Dallas. And the fund is really primarily designed to help you expand your marketing dollars beyond just the local Dallas market. So it's asking you to use those funds to reach outside of the DFW area. It's similar to any other traditional grant funding programs that you guys participate in, but we just emphasize out-of-town visitors. And where that funding comes from is the Dallas Tourism Public Improvement District, which is made up of hotels in the Dallas city limits that have 100 rooms or more. And it was created to advance Dallas as a top tier destination in the US. And it was authorized by the city council back in August of 2012. And what happens is the hotels that are in the PID pay a 2% fee on sold hotel rooms. And the hotels recover that charge by adding it as a room fee to guests. The Tpid was renewed in 2016 for a 13-year term to September 2029. And Dallas Tourism Public Improvement District was modeled after similar initiatives around the country, but we were the first one in Texas. Since then, other cities have followed suit. More and more are joining the effort, but we were the first one here in Texas. And it was basically designed to increase the funding available to market Dallas as a tourism and I'm like blanking on the word, tourism and convention destination. So it does exist at the discretion of the member hotels. And so they are the ones who really came together voluntarily to support this effort. It is a nonprofit private corporation. And the city of Dallas provides the oversight and governance of the PID, and they collect that 2% fee on those sold rooms and then give it back to the tourism PID to be used for marketing and promotion efforts. There's a governance by a 10-member board of directors. It's got 4 non-voting ex officio board members, and hoteliers within the district make up the voting positions. So that's a little bit about how the Tpid works itself. For the event incentive fund, since the inception, more than $8 million has been awarded. So it's a pretty significant amount of money that has been given. And we've contributed to more than 557 arts and culture initiatives. And we just celebrated our eighth birthday. And how that funding breaks down is 7.5% of that 2% fee goes into this arts event incentive fund. To help us with policy recommendations, there's a cultural tourism committee made up of a lot of the fine folks on this call, and we continue to be grateful for their support, particularly throughout this last year that has been difficult for everybody, and we are so grateful for y'all. For the Tpid program, it is a simple application process that you go to our website and apply. But here are the guidelines, and we will be doing a deeper dive into how to apply for the fund and go over actually entering the application details at the upcoming May 12th town hall meeting, and that's from 3 to 4 p.m. We will be offering that as a hybrid meeting, I believe, so there will be a Zoom link, but you could also come to the Visit Dallas offices too if you want to come in person. That's our plan right now, so we'll see how that goes, but that's what we're hoping for. So as I mentioned earlier, applications and events are limited to up to $25,000 annually. Previously, it was $35,000, but we did lower that to ensure that we can have the most support the most amount of organizations as we can, given the funding that we have available. Events that receive other DTPID funding can't apply for this. Events must benefit Tpid participating hotels, so your event has to take place in the city of Dallas. It has to be open to the public, and it must generate a minimum of 30 hotel room nights. It can't primarily be a fundraiser or gala, but it can have that component to the event. And then nonprofit entities are eligible for up to 50% of approved funding up front to help you be able to do those ad buys before your event. And then you've got to demonstrate an intent to retain or bring additional out-of-town visitors to Dallas on your application. And of course, conventions and expos are not eligible for the event fund. New for this year was that $25,000 that previously mentioned. And then we did close applications in last summer for the current fiscal year due to funding, because obviously the fund is generated by sold hotel rooms. And just like you guys, tourism, of course, was dramatically impacted, and a lot of our hotels, were running 5 to 10% occupancy rates during the height of the pandemic, which did impact our funding levels. But we're happy to say that we still approved around $1 million in event funding for last year as well. So funding does remain first come, first serve. And so for fiscal year 22, we're going to open applications on July 1st. And so you'll want to make sure that you guys are ready to apply at that date, because it is first come, first serve for qualifying events. We welcome all events that qualify for the program. And so we are not one to say you have a good event or a bad event. We just want you to have an event and bring people here. That's what we're looking for. The other difference with the prepayments is previously you could do up to a year in advance. Now it's only 6 months. From that first event day. And then lastly, after your event, we're requiring 5 high resolution digital photos that can be used in marketing efforts that we have the legal right to use. So that's part of the new structure. We do have a new website that launched back in November. And that's dallastpid.com, and it is a really pretty site. So if you haven't checked it out, please do so. And you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner of the screen that says event or incentive applications, and you'll just click that button to pull up the application. And so once you get to this screen, you'll just scroll down to the event form and you'll see it right there. And then you'll basically fill out the form. It's about 1.5 pages, 2 pages. The first part of the application is really your name, your organization, what your event dates are, all that good stuff. Then you'll fill out some of the details for us, like what your expected attendance is. You'll tell us a little bit about the event, and then you'll tell us how are you going to use those marketing dollars that you're awarded and where you're going to spend your efforts on that outside of the DFW area. And again, I will be going into a deeper dive into that at the May 12th town hall meeting. So join us for that if you have not applied before, or if you have, but it's been a while, would love to have you. So once your application comes in, it does go through a review process, but I'm the first person that sees it. So I look at those and then I reach out to you and we work together to make sure your application is as strong as it can be before it goes on to the board for review and approval. So feel free to apply, and then we'll go back and forth to make sure that application is really strong, to make sure that you get in prior to the, we run out of funding next year. Once your application is approved, you receive an email from me that talks about what you need to do in the next steps. If you're a new group, you'll need to send us a W-9 and an ACH form. If you are an existing group, but you have changed banks, please, please, please get me that information. We'll need to get updated forms for you so that we can get you paid. And then part of the agreement with Tpid funding is that you treat the Tpid funding just like you would any other sponsor, and that you use the Tpid logo where appropriate, and you'll provide that back to me as part of your post-event reporting as your proof of performance. So that can be sending me a PDF of the brochure you did, or screenshots of your social media. Those kinds of things are just fine. We'll just need that as part of your post-application paperwork. And then you'll also submit to us things like a ticket sales report or your attendance report, and then those 5 photos I mentioned earlier. You'll upload those we have a portal to upload those, and it's pretty easy. So if you already have an event with us, either you had one approved in 2020 that you've moved forward to 21, or you had a new event for 21, but COVID is still impacting you, let me reach out to me, let me know, so that I can update whether you're continuing to stay in this year, but you've just moved, or you're moving to the next fiscal year. And the Tpid board did allow us to move events, even if they were approved in 2020, forward to 22, to try to be as flexible as we can be to get those events back online. But just let me know if something has changed for you so that I can get that updated. If you were approved in 21 or 20 and you're moving forward to 22, you do not need to reapply on that July 1st date, but you do need to let me know so that I can move your award. And if your event is rescheduling beyond 22, so you think you're going to be in 23, 24, you will have to reapply at that time for funding. So, and if your event is totally canceled and it's not coming back, reach out to me and we'll get that worked out too. So that is pretty much the event incentive program. Hannah, are there any questions?
Not yet. So if anyone has questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask her directly.
Okay. Yep. Wonderful. Thank you. I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but feel free to reach out to me and we'll get you at that town hall meeting too. So the next way that we really love to partner with you guys is to make sure that you're uploading your events to our events calendar. The events section of our visitdallas.com accounts for 1/3 of our overall visitation. And we had almost 2.8 million page views in 2019. And the listings can include links back to your site, helping with your own site's visitation and ticket sales. And our events calendar is exclusive to Dallas attractions. And so we can also help you target your audience by tagging it based on what your event is. So some of the best niche sections we have where people are always looking things are free things to do, things for kids and families, and diversity. These are some sections that do really well in terms of visitation to our site. We also use the events calendar to curate collections for major holidays and easy searching for a visitor. So if you have a holiday thing for 4th of July, Valentine's Day, whatever, we can include that in those event collections. This is also where our marketing team does their weekend picks. So this is when they do a blog post and a social media push for everything that's happening over the weekend. And where they pick those from is that events calendar. So it's really important that you have your stuff listed so we can highlight you. And it takes just a couple of minutes to upload that to our events calendar. And then switching gears, I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing now and what we're seeing for visitation. And so we're starting to ramp back up our marketing efforts. And one reason is we're really starting to see Americans' readiness to travel come back. And Destination Analysis has been tracking visitor sentiment since last May. And this last update that we had from April 18th, we've got 71.9% of Americans are ready to travel again. And that's a really exciting marker for us to see. Now, we still have people who are concerned about traveling, and that's at 28.1%. But we're definitely starting to turn that corner and see people come back. So what we're doing as Visit Dallas is our marketing campaign is returning. We started with the new agency last fall, and that's Slingshot. And so they've been developing new product for us, and we're going to do a rolling launch. So it'll start in May and roll through the end of the year, and that's digital, print, broadcast. We've also got a regional key focus in a leisure buy with some national retargeting. And regional is a great market to focus on anytime, but particularly right now when leisure travel is what's really coming back right now versus the business and convention travel. And those are folks that are the drive market. It's Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Oklahoma City, Louisiana. So that kind of regional market is really where we're seeing high visitor traffic. And then trade, where we're marketing more to those convention and business events, that will start ramping up in May and goes through the summer and fall, targeting those meeting planners. We're really working on this campaign to tell a full story of Dallas. So you'll see our core assets, but you also see more off the beaten path locations showcased. And we've got some great geographical representation. The new campaign also focuses on authenticity. We used real Dallas families as our models. We used local Dallas folks. We worked with Dallas artists and creator, including some folks on this call, in some of that new marketing efforts. And we continue to focus heavily on our digital content as a key strategy and priority. And right now we're seeing our organic web traffic almost back up to pre-pandemic levels. So that's also a really exciting benchmark to see, and nice to know that our efforts paid off in that area. And we're doing that, of course, through our websites, blog posts, our social media. And then we're also focusing on our SEO, SEM, and paid social. And SEM, in case anybody didn't know, is that search engine marketing. So we're engaged, and we're going to engage in that as well with that new campaign. So that's kind of where we're focused. Like I said, I think the most exciting thing is that visitors really are wanting to return, and we're going to start to see more and more folks come in. Already our weekend business at the hotels is really high, and almost back to pre-pandemic levels. And then we just got to work to get that business and convention travel back as people feel safe to come back together and meet again. So that is kind of my presentation in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions? No.
I guess not. I think that was a great presentation. I think you
Okay,
already
great.
answered everybody's questions. So
Thank you,
Maribeth,
Maribeth.
thank you. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Nice to know that interest is beginning to flourish out there in terms of getting people back to see our events and see what Dallas has to offer. So thanks so much for joining us. And now I noticed that Ann Graham has been able to join us. She was in another advocacy meeting prior to this one. And for those of you that don't know, Ann Graham is the Executive Director of Texans for the Arts, and DACAC is very closely aligned with them and worked closely with them on Arts Vote Dallas and many other things. And she's going to give us an update on where we stand in terms of Texas Commission on the Arts and the current legislative session. So Ann, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Oh, good. I can see people here because first of all, I wanted to give a shout out to our board members, and I'm just looking around the Zoom room. I saw Chris Heinbaugh. Lily Kabachi-Weiss was just with me. There's Lily. We're just on our every Wednesday from 4 to 4:15. We have an update on all things advocacy for 15 minutes, a real quick snapshot. And Lily was our guest talking about Dallas Arts Month and also the pending USA Today Cultural District discussion, because we know with Texas has 2 of the cultural districts in the running. So we're very excited about that and talking about the legislative session too. And have I missed any others? Of course, Joanna is on our board. Sumitra Goodson is on our board. Dr. Artiega is on our board. Help me board members if I'm forgetting anybody, but with all due respect.
Clyde Valentine.
Yes, Clyde.
But I don't see him here.
Great. And Tina's been a huge assistant to us in many, many ways too. So a shout out to Tina, Tino, and Deb as well. So lots of people involved. So where we stand, this will be a quick wrap up. We are 1 month out from the end of the 87th Texas legislative session. And yeah, there's a lot happening. So the one thing that the state legislature must do is pass a balanced budget. And the beginning part of the session is all about committee hearings, bill hearings, budget, Senate Finance Committee meetings, House Appropriation meetings. And we are always developing our relationships with those key legislators who oversee the appropriation process. And that is where the money for the Texas Commission on the Arts as a state agency comes from, the appropriation process. The 2 primary sources of arts funding in the state being hotel occupancy tax and the TCA. Very different sources and very different uses of resources. So right now, the Senate, and the one thing that the legislature must do is the Senate must pass a balanced budget and the House must pass a balanced budget. They're never going to match. They come together in what's called the conference committee, and that's where we are today. So House has approved its budget, Senate has approved their budget, and now the twain shall meet. So there are 5 senators on the conference committee, and there are 5 representatives. And these are all the most critical decision makers in the next few weeks. Representative Greg Bonin, Representative Gio Capriglione, some of you might be in his district, Representative Mary Gonzalez from El Paso, Representative Wally, Representative Terry Wilson from Georgetown. On the Senate side, Senator Jane Nelson, who is also the chair of Senate Finance, Senator Joan Huffman from a part of Houston, Senator Nichols from Jacksonville, Senator Lois Colkhorst from Brenham, and Senator Larry Taylor from Pearland. I had to sort of look at my notes here. The reps were just appointed as of yesterday. So what does that mean? That means that they really go into closed doors, not public meetings. All the Senate Finance and House Appropriation meetings are open to the public. You can watch them on TV, you can go and you can testify, but conferees meet in private. So now we still have opportunities to advocate through their staff. And if any of those names that I mentioned are your representatives or your senators, please reach out to them in the next week and reiterate why support for the Texas Commission on the Arts, $10 million for the cultural district, is so important. That is the one kink in the budget that we are dealing with right now. The House appropriated $10 million in the TCA's annual budget, biennial budget, excuse me. The Senate at the very beginning had a $4 million cut to $6 million. So you've got $6 million and you got a $10 million. We want to make sure when they come together on that article, Article 1, and the TCA is the first thing in the budget. It is the first thing that they will talk about. We don't want to hear them say, oh, 6, 10, let's compromise at 8. We want the House to be steadfast and say 10, 10, 10, we're not negotiating. And we want the Senate to bring that up to a full 10. It's the same thing we got last year. We're not asking for an increase. So that advocacy we've been working on since the beginning of the semester session. If you all participated in our Arts Advocacy Day in February, that was the message we were talking about then. A little frustrating to have to spend so much time on that, but we know how important, and you all know how important it is in Dallas. For the number of institutions that have applied for those TCA funds and put them to use in Dallas is important, as it is in Fort Worth, Plano. I mean, there's about 6 or 7. McKinney now has one. Frisco, I think, is in the works. So there are other ones in the works. So that's really the most important thing that we're working on right now. 2 other quick things. Senate Bill 1655 is a county hot reporting bill. Not all counties have the hotel tax, and it's not, there's no requirement, you have to opt in. It's not automatic, whereas if you're a municipality, you can automatically levy a hotel tax, and the state is required. County is an opt-in, and there's about 18, 20 bills this session for counties to opt in. One thing we didn't do this session, which light bulb went off late, next session, I want to file a bill that requires that if you are a county and you're applying for hotel occupancy tax, I want to make sure that you have to have up to 15% for the arts, just like the municipality, because that is not part of the county law right now. So that's what I'm already thinking ahead to next session about, something that we might be able to do that'd be very productive. So that's the gist. The next 2 weeks, there's also bills that are moving forward. The Senate Bill 1655 just moved into the calendars, which is great. That's the next step. We'll be hopefully getting that to the governor's desk for a signature. There are many, many other bills that are not going to make it. There are other bills right now that are waiting to get into calendars or waiting to get a hearing on the Senate floor. And happy to speak to any of those. Some are tangential, very few tangential directly to the arts. There's very controversial ones around voting, which we're not politically taking a stand on, but clearly those issues are of paramount importance because they do impact our democracy, and they actually certainly impact our elections. And that's something that, again, we haven't taken a formal position on that, but are very cognizant of the implications of some of the voter bills. Sort of last but not least at all are the ARP, or American Rescue Plan funds, that are coming to the state. They will be arriving in May, I believe on May 11th. 50% of those funds will be coming to the state. The state will be getting 16 billion. Municipalities will be getting 10 billion with a B. We have a link on our webpage, American Rescue Plan. You can go, there's a PowerPoint there. If you scroll down to slide 6 and click on a link there, you can look up Dallas. If you don't already know how many millions of dollars are coming to Dallas, we were just looking up a community that I was just looking at this morning. I was talking to somebody from College Station, a community the size of College Station is getting, I think, $27 million. So these are significant amount of funding, and nobody's going to give any of that to the arts if we don't ask for it. So we're trying to put together written materials, letters, talking points, this PowerPoint that is on our website, to be able to take that information to your municipal leaders. You're in the middle of an election, so you have the opportunity to ask people running for office, what would they do with ARP and how would they make sure that some of these funds go to the arts and culture sector. So important. Lily was so eloquent on the phone or on our Facebook Live thing, talking about why now, why the arts. Arts always in our book, but from healing and the important need for us to still work through the pandemic as individuals, families, neighborhoods, community-wide, statewide, and in addition, the economic impact implications and people starting, you just heard on the Visit Dallas there, people are starting to thinking about traveling again and what's going to bring them to Dallas. And it's a good part's going to be your cultural district and the community assets and the cultural assets that you have. So really trying to get some of that ARP money is one of the most important next things you can be working on. We're seeing activity happen and meetings. I know Austin has already been weighing in, and their Economic Development Department, Cultural Affairs, has submitted a request to council. Council has come back at the moment and said, no funding right now for the arts, but they're not giving up. So that's my word of advice is all eyes on one, your election, and two, on the ARP and how those funds might be allocated in Dallas. And for those of you who live outside Dallas, in every one of your communities, every community over 50,000. If you remember CARES, it was over 500,000. Now the community size, every community and county over 50,000, money comes straight from the federal government. It is not going through the state of Texas. So that's one less hurdle you have to get it into your community. So really important. And those resources can be used. The only thing they can't be used is to replace taxes and to replace pensions. Not as in hotel tax, but as in sales tax, property tax. And it's really important that I think that looking at hotel tax loss, for instance, any economic loss directly related to COVID and the pandemic is going to be allowable reimbursables. So that's really what we're looking at across the state is the hotel tax and what losses there were from there. That's just one set of tangible data. Dallas, you've done some of your own economic impact studies to show other tangible measurements of economic loss, job loss, revenue loss, ticket sales loss. Those are all things that would qualify for loss of resources because of the pandemic. So that's just a lot of whirlwind. Yeah.
And back to the budget just a moment. You were talking about the House. Is it worth circling back with our elected House members in particular and kind of get them to reinforce with their colleagues? I know we've got now Representative Myers now is a little higher in the leadership, and I mean, will that help at all?
I don't think it will hurt. And Shannon and I were talking about this from a human resource perspective. She's sort of targeting key people that she has reached to. Shannon Gangerty is our lobbyist. I think for me, it is worth it if you've got a good working relationship with your representatives. They're not going to be in the room, but if they have a good relationship with one of the 5 that I mentioned and can just say, we've got your back, we believe in this, we support this, please know that this is important for our district. I don't think that hurts at all. And that is leadership talking to leadership. So, I mean, we still are making a few more legislative visits and they're not on that list, but it's like, if you can reinforce with your fellow 5 representatives who are on there and just let them know that this is so important, I don't see any harm in that. We're not asking for a deluge of letters. We're not doing an action alert or anything like that. But to me, if you've got a positive relationship, can pick up the phone, reach a legislator or their chief of staff, and you're friendly with them, just to let them know that, these 5 who are representing, or the 5 senators or the 5 representatives, that we're there for you. And this is really an important issue. And compromise to 8 million is not, I mean, nobody said compromise, but that's just, I'm expecting that. So I'm saying we're steadfast for that $10 million. It's level funding. So good question, Chris. Any other questions? Thank you for having me. And
well, wait a minute. I thought you were going to do your pitch. We are focused right now. We're focused on the election, but it is really the work that Texans for the Arts does for all of us. The funding we get is because Texans for the Arts is there doing this work on the ground, not just during the sessions, but in between the sessions and everything. Everybody who gets any money from the state ought to be a member of Texans for the Arts, because this organization, along with DACAC, all right, on the local level, but I mean, these are the organizations that are making it happen. And if all of a sudden somebody is successful in killing Texas Commissions for the Arts, you know, you may look and realize, oh, not Texas, the Texas Commission on the Arts, you know, TCA is there, TFA is there, I'm getting them all mixed up. Texans for the Arts is there all the time fighting those efforts. And there are people who try to kill Texans Commissions on the Arts all the time. And it is so important that we keep TFA going, and we're in the middle of a membership drive. And we haven't focused that much on it because we're trying to get past the election right now. But we need everybody to please step up and be a member. It's not that much. It's a great investment of your organization or your own individual membership. So please, Ann, tell us about how they can sign up, and we will follow up with everybody.
Great.
Put the link in the chat.
All right. Well, and here I'm going to do it. I can type and talk at the same time. No, I can't. Oops, I didn't. I spelled it wrong. I forgot the com. So TexansForTheArts.com, upper right-hand corner, big red button that says join. You can't miss it. TexansForTheArts.com. Somebody else can type that in there. And you can go there, and we appreciate it. The membership, again, every member counts. Really an important campaign. Some of you are members here. Thank you already for being members. And again, our campaign is running. We're running the campaign through the end of May, but certainly people can become members any time of the year, but we really do encourage that support. And I will speak very briefly. So last week, in fact, when the House was hearing the Senate's budget, there were 2 amendments to negatively impact the TCA, just as Chris suggested. One was to take $2 million away for a special water project in another legislative district. And the other was to take the entire agency's funding and to put it towards the border wall. So that was actually killed, no relation, you know, I mean, that bill was killed for a procedural reason. And the other one was tabled and put into something called Article 11, which is like the graveyard of bills. So it happens, just as Chris said, every year somebody's vision is to take away the agency and not see the importance of the arts. So, and put it to something like the border wall or whatever their project is of note. So, and it's something you have to be present to watch, because there's something called put and take. And that is like, well, I'll take $2 million from you and I'll put it over here, but then you take $2 million from here and put it over there. So you just have, the legislators have to be on their toes, because somebody can go up to the back mic and just present whatever they want. But fortunately we made it through the budget intact. So.
And who's our lobbying firm?
Shannon Gangurdy is an independent lobbyist, and she's worked with us now. This is her end of her 2nd session. She, for 17 years, worked with Senator Jane Nelson, originally as her chief of staff and legal counsel. Then when Senator Nelson chaired the Health and Human Services Committee, excuse me, Shannon was the lead staff. And then when Senator Nelson chaired the Senate Finance Committee, as she is now, Shannon was the lead staff for the Senate Finance. So finance is her bailiwick. And she's a one-woman show. She's got other clients. We are her only arts client. And a lot of her other ones are in healthcare and in protecting women from sexual violence. She's has a number of different clients that she works with. She's very good. She's very, she's used to being in the room. She knows how to be in the right room at the right time with the right people.
Excellent. Thank you,
Teresa.
And thank you, Ann. And I just want to remind everybody that, you know, we have an ongoing partnership. The Arts Vote Dallas initiative that we did a couple of years ago wouldn't have happened without Texans for the Arts. And it's not just about funding. I think we remember the bathroom bills from the last session and how damaging that would have been to all of us and to our economy here. And as Ann said, you just never know when something is going to come out of left field. And so, you know, Ann is there and Shannon's there with eyes on the proceedings, and hopefully putting out these fires before they turn into something really damaging. And so we need Texans for the Arts, and we need DACAC, and we've shown repeatedly that we've accomplished a lot. I don't know that Texas Commission for the Arts would still be here without Texans for the Arts and DACAC. And I don't know that our funding for the city of Dallas or even the department would still be here without the efforts of all of us. So Anne, thank you for all that you do. I know that you work night and day on this on our behalf, and we all appreciate it. So.
Well, and a final shout out to DACAC. You are the only city in Texas that has a well-organized, well-structured advocacy group like you do. And thanks to Joanna for her leadership, and Tino, and all of you who really keep it moving, and your commitment, because I mean, it just, you accomplish so much. And the more people on this call, for instance, you're that much more powerful every time you add somebody. And I so missed not being in Dallas for your Arts Advocacy Day. I wanted to be there in person with y'all, because we've got 7 members of the Dallas community on our board. So you guys figure loud and clear, and we really, really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. I want to be mindful of the time. So very quickly, we're going to, obviously the election's not over. The last day to vote is May 1st. That's this Saturday. And polls are open from 7 to 7. So if you haven't already voted, please, please, please get out there and encourage your friends, relatives, board members, patrons, etc. I keep reading that the voter turnout has been low, and I haven't seen any updates today, but, and Chris, I don't know if you've seen anything, but we know that in this city that low voter turnout can mean that a sort of unknown candidate can, with just a few extra votes, can get elected to the city council. And we have suffered issues in the past because of that circumstance. So it's vitally important. And we know that most of the council districts are probably going to end up in runoffs. There's probably maybe four to six that are likely to have an outright winner. But it's, more to come on that, of course. Chris, do you have anything to add on the election?
No, I think, it is important that people get out to vote. We have spent, Joanna and I and Charles and Lily and a number of us have spent a lot of time with council candidates, both incumbents and, as a refresher with incumbents, but then also new candidates, to make sure that they appreciate what the arts, brings to the economy, to the quality of life, to tourism, the impact that COVID has had on it. And, we had our agenda. And so from that standpoint, I think for the most part, we've got, we will have some at least informed advocates on the council. But we've also had some that have been good champions for us as well. And DACAC, of course, does not take a position. I think some of some of us individually have been working on behalf of some candidates, but as an organization, DACAC does not take a position. But all those have been posted. Their responses to the arts surveys are listed there on our Dallas Needs the Arts. Is that right? .com. Yeah. They're there. So please take time, read the surveys. They took time to fill them out. You'll see who took time to fill them out, I should say, and that should give you an idea where they stand. But we've done the legwork on the front end. So however it turns out, we're hopeful for that we'll have a council full of advocates, and we're going to need it. It's going to be a tough year again. And the city is getting some money from the federal government in terms of COVID. Jennifer Scripps is working hard to make sure that a chunk of that goes to the arts. And I will say a number of the candidates, the council incumbents, have said they want to see part of it go to the arts. How that works out, we'll see. But let's see what happens on Saturday, and then see who's in the runoffs. And then we do it again for a month. So.
Yep. Okay. Is there anything else we need to chat about before we're done here today?
Joanna, I just have a question. Do we have a piece of communication, an email or a letter that went to every candidate that was running with the same opportunities? I just don't want any candidate to come back to us to say that, you know, there was no meeting, there was no opportunity for a meeting, we didn't get
Yes,
the
we
survey,
did.
et cetera. Okay, great.
Every person got a text if we had a number, and you provided a lot of those, Tina. Everybody got an email, everybody got a text. And in many cases, I got a response and they never filled it out. And I do know from them telling us they had a lot of surveys to fill out for all sorts of people. So, but everybody had an opportunity.
Yeah. And this
Great,
was a
thank
short
you.
survey, so not a lot of reading, but we do encourage you to go take a look. And before we go, I just want to make sure everybody knows that Tino is our newest member of the Arts and Culture Advisory Commission representing District 1. And so we're very proud of Tino and know that he'll be a great addition to that group. So just wanted to give you a shout out and congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you to Linda Blaze. I think one of your colleagues is on the call here too, for her long work on that commission.
Glad to have you on the commission, believe me.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, well, I guess that's it for us today. And thank you all for joining us. Special thanks to Ann Graham and Maribeth Lyson for your presentations. And hope to see you at our brown bag on the 11th and at our next meeting on May 26th. So take care, everybody, and go vote.